I can have it here, not so you can read it. I don't have a speech. I just wanted to come up and thank you all for being here. If you see what I see, it's a crowded room, and that to what have you, it's a testament to the pride that we all have in our community. I was talking to the chancellor this morning. I told him that a few years ago I adopted a hashtag that says "Mi Harlingen querido," my beloved Harlingen, and that's because of how I feel about this community. And when I come to events like this, whether I'm a guest or we're organizing or whatever, and I see the crowd out here, and it reinforces "Mi Harlingen querido" to me. And it's not really just Harlingen; it's the entire valley. So I know that the chancellor's been down here many times. I've met with him and talked to him many times. This is my first time hosting him as the provost of the campus. So we spoke about that this morning. It's an honor for me to be able to come here. And he knows a lot of you already, but to be able to bring him here and say this is our community and this is Harlingen and they support you. And not just Harlingen, and I was going to text you, but I didn't know if you had your phone. We also have Ali Bussy, a trustee from Lyford, neighboring community, a good friend of mine. And from Lyford, they have a lot of our students. We have students from all over the valley, traditional students, dual credit students, and we have a lot from the Woodson County area, big supporters of TSTC. So thank you for being here. I'm now going to turn it over to our region. We talked about Dr. Perez and Lizzie, and I don't know who serves Texas most, because they do so much for not just our local community, but for our statewide community. Lizzie serves us as our local regent on the TSTC Board of Regents, and she's going to come up here to officially introduce the chancellor. Thank you.
Well, what a great crowd. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very proud to be here. I am wearing different hats. I'm wearing a board member for the Harlingen Chamber hat. I'm wearing a board member for the Harlingen EDC chat. And I'm wearing the board regent hat for TSTC. And I cannot share how exciting it is to be part of this community. I think those of you that heard when Governor Abbott came to the region, he said all eyes are on Texas, but all eyes are really in the Rio Grande Valley and the things that are happening in the Rio Grande Valley. And as was stated, TSTC has 10 campuses throughout Texas, and Harlingen is fortunate to have one of those 10 campuses throughout Texas. And I'll tell you what, for those that don't know me, I used to work for the Brownsville Economic Development Council in my past life, and I would work, my role was to work with current employers as Director of Business Retention and Expansion, and then as Director of Business Recruitment to recruit companies. And I can't tell you how many times employers within the valley would tell me, I want training at TSTC. I know there are great other community colleges, but I want my training for my employees at TSTC because TSTC is different. They're doing things right. And I always say that TSTC is different for many ways from other schools, but TSTC is data-driven, it's performance-based, it's student-centered, and it's mission-focused. TSTC looks at data and looks at what jobs are in demand. What are our employers asking for? What is best for our students? Because at the end of the day, we're trying to provide a product to employers and we're trying to provide a future for our students. And so TSTC looks at all of that, and that is how TSTC makes its decisions based on programs and on different job training opportunities. And so I can't speak highly enough. I used to be a huge fan of TSTC, and now obviously as a TSTC board regent, I am even more excited. But at TSTC, our goal is to place more Texans in great paying jobs, and I can honestly say we are doing the best job. And so I want to thank the whole team. It's great to have our whole team here. If you're part of the TSTC team, can you please raise up your hand? Because there are two, wow. And so, it goes without saying that, Mike Reeser is the chancellor. He is our fearless leader. But he cannot do his job without this magnificent team, this powerful team that we have here today. And many that are not here, but it's you all, it's where the rubber meets the road, it's you all that are here, that I work every day, day in, day out. And then Eladio as provost, and then previous provost Gledia. But all of this team, it's just a magnificent team, and I feel so honored and blessed to be part of this great team. So now, for the reason that we are here, I do want to formally introduce our chancellor. As chancellor and CEO of Texas State Technical College, Mike Reeser leads public two-year technical college system with 10 campuses across Texas, and we are growing, so there will be more. Under Reeser's leadership, TSTC has become well known as an innovator in higher education operations. Two of the most noteworthy innovations are the return value funding formula, a state funding method based solely on student employment outcomes and not on enrollment census. That is huge, because as you all know, most other colleges, it's based on student enrollment, and we are based on performance-based and student employment outcomes. And the second one is a money-back guarantee, an employment assurance program that refunds tuition to students who can't find a job after earning a TSTC degree. So we put our money where our mouth is, and so the return value formula and the money-back guarantee are two other great things that distinguish us from a lot of your other higher ed institutions. Prior to being appointed chancellor in 2010, Reeser served TSTC in various roles, including chief financial officer, which is great because he gets money, and so he makes sure that our funds are appropriated the best way possible. College president and dean of instruction. In the early half of his career, Reeser was a banker who served in executive and management roles in Houston and Waco. Reeser is married and has 4 grown children. He holds a BS degree from Texas A&M University. I knew that was coming. And an MBA from the University of Texas in Arlington. So please help me welcome Mike Reeser.
Boy, my mom wrote a pretty good introduction. That's really something. Is it okay if I stand out here?
Yeah.
Okay, I feel kind of hemmed in back there, if that's all right. Now, they told me I only have about 90 minutes. Is that okay? Do y'all want to hit the bar before I get started? Is that okay? And by the way, I hope I get invited back for the Margarita Fest that I discovered on the website today. So, what an honor it is to be here. Although it also feels like coming home. And the reason is TSTC was chartered in 1965, but it came to the Valley in about 69, 70, 71. Harlingen was the second campus in the TSTC system. And that's why today, of all the various campuses that we have in the TSTC system, Harlingen and Waco are the flagship campuses, because they're the oldest and they're the biggest. I'll tell you why Harlingen is the biggest. It's because for all of that half century that your TSTC has been here is because the city of Harlingen, the EDC group, and all the other community leaders in this region consistently supported the college. It supported the college with things like gifts of land or building construction capabilities or scholarships or things like that. And that kind of investment by the community was returned by the state of Texas in the form of growing the college that sits here today. And so we are really proud to be both the beneficiary of your generosity, but the partner in economic development in realizing great things for RGV. That we take that partnership very, very seriously. And I wanted you to hear that directly from me so that you know that. I'd like to tell you a quick story if I could. TSTC does have 10 campuses right now, so there are 9 others other than Harlingen. There's a new one coming up out of the ground in New Braunfels, and there's going to be another new one up in Denton County. Now, both of those were added by the legislature during the last session. But all of our campuses are not quite as big as they could be, and the reason is the way that our funding flows. We aren't quite a university system, and we aren't quite a community college. We don't levy property taxes. So Harlingen doesn't pay any property taxes to TSTC. And that's how two-year colleges tend to build their buildings. We have been working with the legislature, and I want you to know that Governor Patrick over in the Senate has told us that he wants to once again sponsor a effort in the legislature this session to try to create an endowment for TSTC that will allow us the capital to build buildings on the various campuses that we have. So to the extent that any of you are involved in this coming session with the legislature at all, we hope you'll keep an eye out for that and offer your support for that sort of thing, because we're starting about we're talking about a starting balance of $1 billion. So that could be a meaningful part of helping TSTC continue to grow. RGV is growing like crazy. And we hope that the start we built over the past 50 years is going to give us a launching platform to keep up with the employment needs that y'all have. But let me offer you one more benefit if I could. Because we have 10 campuses across the whole state, we have a diversity of programs that's really hard to find anywhere else. It's easy to overlook the fact, for example, that in Texas, of the 50-odd public two-year colleges in Texas, we are #1 by a long shot in diesel technicians, for example. We produce 60% of all the power linemen in Texas. 60%. We produce more welders than the next 2 colleges put together. So, and the list goes on. I could give you not a billion, up to 60 programs where we are the market leader. And the reason is this, is we listen first to the unmet workforce needs of your industrial employers when we curate and field a program. The reason is, it's those unmet needs where your bottlenecks in economic development exist. Anybody in the business knows the first question a business asks when they're considering coming to a region is, where's my workforce gonna come from? Y'all are so smart to put your EDC right on our campus, because your EDC gets to point across the street and go, right there. And if there's a program that we don't have here that a new company in the Valley needs, somewhere on our 10 campuses, we offer that program. And we can copy and paste in order to meet the needs of your region. The other thing that I think is a great advantage is Claudia Hernandez and Rick Herrera. These are both local leaders for TSTC that share statewide missions. Rick is our campus expansion officer for the entire state, and Claudia is our external relations executive officer for the entire state. And she manages about 4 or 5 different functions, including custom workforce training. She trains literally thousands of Texans every year in spot training efforts all over the state. If you see those 18-wheelers running around where she's teaching CDL, that's an example of the sort of thing she's able to do all over Texas. And she is as good as it gets at that. No one's better. So you have the statewide lead right here in the Valley, and we'll always be able to grab her here if you need it. So, TSTC brings the power of Texas to the region. We take our partnership with you really, really seriously, and we want to be all that you want. You know, I gotta say one more thing. The pandemic really hurt the two-year sector. If you were paying attention, you saw that there were some schools in Texas who lost as much as 20 or 25% of their enrollment. Now that is really a challenge when your tuition revenue is based on the volume of students you have. Think about your business suddenly losing 20 or 25% of its revenues. That's been a challenge in the two-year sector. TSTC, however, only softened a little bit, single digits. And then, after the pandemic, and in the 2 years since, we have grown double-digit percentages year over year. And we're on course to do it yet again. So TSTC is an exception in your region in terms of rapid growth, and we think the reason is the students know that there are no dead-end pathways in the TSTC curriculum. And it only makes sense because we don't earn our state funding unless we put a student to work. So why would we offer a program that doesn't have an almost certain placement record in the job market? And then the key part is, the more those students make for the first 5 years they're in the job, the more state funding we earn. So we are the only school you've ever heard of that's paid on commission. And that commission is based on student prosperity. The more prosperous they are, the more state funding we earn. And that's why the ROI at TSTC is so giant, is because these talented people who work there are obsessed with helping that student realize that professional outcome. So, we're really glad to be here. I'm sorry I didn't take all 90 minutes. I did my best. Is there any questions that I could answer? Yes, sir.
When they get jobs, do the jobs have to be in Texas or any place?
Yes, they have to be in Texas. If they go out of the state, we lose about somewhere between 3 to 6% will go out of state. And we lose them, yeah. And well, here's another one. I mean, if someone comes and stays and takes one class and drops out, we don't get any funding at all. So you can imagine we're pretty obsessed with the idea of helping kids persevere. Yes, sir.
Is there a wage requirement that you're looking for?
Wage
When it
or
comes to,
age?
yeah, type of career, wage requirement.
I'll tell you what we do is, the answer is no. The wages of our graduates are compared to minimum wage. And so minimum wage is netted out. So if we produce somebody who just barely makes any money over minimum wage, then we get almost no funding at all. You have to have a good job in order to count in our funding formula. So we look at the programmatic mix that we put in each region the way you would an investment portfolio, where you're looking at the performance of the various securities, and you're saying, okay, what's working really well here and what's underperforming? And when we have programs that are underperforming the market, they aren't adding a lot of value to the student, we sunset those and put in a high value program so that wherever the kids pick, whatever the young people pick, they end up in a good track. So the answer is no, there's no minimum kind of floor, but lower paid jobs, we tend to let the community colleges focus on those pathways. And they're often really anxious to do it because their formula is based on certificate completion, not job placement, but certificate completion. So they have a strong economic incentive to get people to good work-related stuff, but it doesn't have the earnings kicker on it. Yes.
Okay, not a question, but I know that there's a negative stigma, unfortunately, with a lot of the technical jobs. Can you share some of the salaries that these students are making, whether it's the electrical lineman program or welding, so that people can understand that these are great jobs?
If I get a surge tech certificate from you, how much do I make after, say, 3 to 5 years on the job?
we're associate degree.
Yeah, associate
And
degree.
our technologists can make 6 figures if they work hard enough.
6 figures with a 2-year degree in surge tech. Our power linemen average somewhere in the $70,000 a year range to start. Within 3 to 5 years, they are typically making 6 figures. And these are the guys that climb the power poles and restore your lights after a storm, or install infrastructure like that. Plumbers, once we have a partnership with the state plumbing board. We're the only off-site testing center that they have in Texas. Plumbers tend to start in the $50,000 to $70,000 range, and after you become a master, it's quite common for you to be well into the 6 figures as a plumber. Now, I have 2 degrees. I have 2 kids with degrees in accounting, and they don't make that much money.
So, Mr. Reeser, following up on what you're commenting on, what would you suggest or forecast to change that paradigm of thinking of how traditionally in either K-12 or higher ed, of how we pursue or tell our children of what higher education will offer an opportunity for a better quality of life or higher earning paying jobs? Because normally, or at least I would speak for myself, you won't think of a welder or a plumbing white, because I work in higher ed. You think doctors, lawyers,
Exactly,
teachers,
yeah.
nurses. So what would you suggest or offer that in the community as Harlingen for us to, change? I know.
There's a margarita escape.
Oh, you want to break. Sorry.
You'll be fine.
Wait, you know what I mean?
I do know it is, well, here's one thing that you could do. One thing that can happen is, look at the data. The workforce data in Texas indicate that somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 33 to 35% of all the jobs in Texas require a bachelor's degree or greater. Only 35%. That's 1 in 3. So we have, when I went to school, it was the 70s. By the way, when I went to Texas A&M, I paid $3 a credit hour. $3. Today it's 100 times that much. So I went to school in the 70s. There were no cell phones, there were no PCs, there were no computers, there weren't any fax machines, there weren't even pagers. We lived in an analog world. And what my father said to me was, just go get a bachelor's degree because you'll get a white collar job and you'll make more money. And his advice was true, because we lived in an analog world. We left the analog world behind decades ago. But the notion that more education automatically results in more money endures despite the fact that that died with the analog world. Here's what I did with my kids. We sat down at the kitchen table and I had the data. And I asked them, what kind of life do you want? Do you want to work inside? Do you want to work outside? Do you want to work with people? Do you want to be an individual contributor? And we interviewed them. And we talked about the features of what they wanted. I asked them, do you want to rent or do you want to own? Do you want to buy a car or do you want to ride the bus? Tell me what you want. Do you want to go to vacation in Galveston or here, be over on the island? Or do you want to go to Mexico? And as they answered those questions, I added it all up for them. And I said, okay, here's about what you're going to need to make. Now, here's all the various jobs that make money like that. pick your what looks good to you, and then I'll describe to you which degrees will get you that kind of job. That's how we did it at my house, and it worked. They picked county, but our welders still make more money.
Obviously.
So if they had picked welding, I'd been fine with that too. So here's where you have to start. Remember when your first child was born? Remember that? You remember getting home from the hospital and looking at your spouse, and you've got this little bundle? You're going, oh my gosh, they let me take this home. And you're sitting there and you're taking it into the nursery for the very first time, and you're just glowing, and you're actually and you're sitting here and you're rocking your little baby, and you're saying, who knows what the world has in store for you. But when you grow up, I hope you be a welder. Okay, if you laughed, and everybody laughs whenever I tell that story, then you hold a part of that bias in our society that you're giggling because you think a welder is less than. And we as a culture have to decide that the value of a person in the society is not based on where they go to work or even how much college they had. The value is, are they a productive citizen making an impact and participating in our community in a beneficial way? That's the way that we can replace this education, let's call it old-fashioned education notion, with the truth. So that's what
Double swords filling for Margarita. Well, I don't know for her.
I haven't gotten told that story in years, so I'll give her the $5.
There you go.
It was top shelf.
Okay, $10. Anything else I can do? So one of the things, Dr. Perez could tell you about this, one of the things that I think you're beginning to see is an evolution in higher ed. And the notion that making credentials that have a stronger alignment with the workforce is a growing trend. The UT system is actually leading the way in a lot of ways in that, by embedding a lot of micro-credentials and other kinds of market-driven stuff in their baccalaureate degrees to raise the value in the employer's eyes on those degrees, and therefore provide the student with a greater return on investment. So your very own Nolan Pereira should be congratulated for the fact that he is a, let's call it an innovator in the space. Anything else? Okay, back to Margarita Fest.